You're listening to NIL Now, a podcast dedicated to the name, image, and likeness of today's college and high school athletes.
So we're going to explore the crazy and wildly interesting world of name, image, and likeness.
NIL Now, covering the latest sports business headlines and keeping you informed on the nation's top performers. This is NIL Now, where the stars of tomorrow are getting noticed today.
It's the Wild Wild West, but we're wrangling it in.
Presented by Headline Studio and Reddit. Here are your hosts, Lauren Sisler and Kevin Jones.
What is up, my friends? Welcome back to another episode of NIL Now. Hard to believe, episode number 4. What's going on? This is a production of Headline Studio and Reddit, and we're so glad you can join us as we explore the crazy and wildly interesting world of name, image, and likeness. I'm Lauren Sisler, sideline reporter for ESPN. I'm your host alongside former Virginia Tech All-American running back and an NFL first-round draft pick to the Detroit Lions, Kevin Jones, a.k.a. KJ. How you been this week, man?
Yo, I'm doing good. That's a great introduction. I love that voice. I need to copy that someday.
Well, it's been years. It's been years in the making, my friend. I used to get told that I sounded like Hannah Montana, i.e. Miley Cyrus, okay? That's what I was told. So any of you guys out there listening right now, you can tell me if that's right or wrong, but it was Hannah Montana. So whatever, I'll take it. She's got a pretty good singing voice. I do not, on the other hand. But yeah, so we're podcasting episode 4, and here's the format of the show each week. We'll start things off with our top NIL news and headlines. Then we're going to bring in one of our partners from Reddit, Bobak, who runs RCFB, the home of the college football on Reddit. And then our third segment, we're going to feature an athlete, coach, agent, or business owner, or someone that is immersed in the NIL space for some insight. And we're excited because today we're joined by Ben Chase, an NIL consultant and college football superfan, who has gone, y'all, this is crazy, Kevin, 47 college football games this fall.
Exactly. I'm excited to get those questions going for him.
Like literally I have so many questions. 47 games this fall. And he's got a goal of going to 70 by the time the season's over. So many questions to get to on that. We're looking forward to getting Ben Chase on the show. All right, Kevin, let's jump into the headlines for today.
NIL headlines.
The first headline starts with the New York Times story on LSU gymnast Olivia Dunne. That's Olivia Dunne. She's an LSU gymnast. And there's kind of a lot to unpack here and lots of comments and things kind of going around here. But this kind of surfaced this week. And yeah, so kind of diving into this. So basically, the New York Times published a story about Dunne's NIL success and online persona, but also offered a perspective that female athletes earning NIL money could be because of their looks and online brand rather than athletic capabilities. Mm-hmm. This story was written by Kurt Streeter, quoted Stanford women's basketball coach Tara Vanderveer as saying female athletes popularizing themselves and earning NIL money because of their appearance, not their athletic performance, is a step back.
They need to step back those comments.
Step back those comments. I see what you did there, Kevin. I got a couple different things to say about this. And so I'm kind of anxious to jump into this one from my standpoint. Okay, so look, I'm 38 years old. I'm throwing it out there. We had Facebook, I think my junior year when I was at Rutgers was the first year we got Facebook, okay? And so like it was a whole new world with this whole like social media thing, like social media, we didn't even know what that was, right? And obviously over the years, it's taken on a completely different, like it's a different animal. It's something completely different. And the way things are marketed, the way we use social media is so much different.
Yeah.
So for me personally, I'm just going to say this, like I'm 38 years old. I mean, I would be hard pressed to even like frump around in a leotard anymore than, but let's be real.
But you got to preface, you are a former gymnast as well.
Former gymnast.
So you have industry expertise, opinion on this.
Expertise. Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. We were rocking the leotards. That's what we compete in. That's part of the sport. That's, kind of how you're judged, obviously having to, be able to show off your artistry and your clean lines with your body, because the sport does use your body as part of the way you judge the sport, right? And the execution of the sport. So you're already kind of obviously in that realm. But I think some of the concern is, and kind of what this article is pointing out to, and maybe what people have said about it, is that she's really using her body, and the images that she posts on social media are maybe a little bit more revealing, have maybe more sexual undertones to them. And that concern is, okay, now you're highlighting your femininity and, you know, maybe you're wearing less clothes than others would. For me personally, it would be hard for me to pose like that with less clothes on. But also I'm 38 years old. So if I was 20 years old like her with a rockin' body, by the way, you know, and someone threw $3 million at me, you know, I can't say that my 18, 19, 20-year-old self wouldn't be in that mindset. Here's the one thing I will say. She's not doing something that other 20-year-old women aren't doing out there.
The influencers out there, yeah.
The influencer out there. And that's what women are doing. So I will say as a whole, I maybe have a little bit more of like a little bit of that feeling, not towards her, but really just towards influencers as a whole and how they kind of project and put themselves out there. But that's just because I'm 38 years old and probably know more now than what I knew then. I'm older. My mindset's different. Like, you know, I can't say that I can put myself in their shoes because when I was that age, things were a lot different, right? And so that's probably how I would approach it and feel about it, because she's really just doing what any other influencer, athlete or non-athlete, would be doing to capitalize on their image and being able to use that to obviously make money.
I agree with all that you kind of just brought us through from your perspective. And then I think the article in general is a bit much, trying to tackle like a few different issues of like gender equality and Title IX and over-sexualization of women. And then you throw on top of that the NIL industry. And I think that one point that I want to make is like, you know, if we keep this in context of the NIL, which I think the article should have probably did a little bit better job at, you know, student athletes can't get paid for their like pay for play. So in one part of the article, they talked about, you know, she should be getting paid, or athletes should be getting paid for their performance. And I think that while the performance is connected to the personal brand, I think that the name, image, and likeness is more about the person's or personal brand. So I think we focus like the industry and the article on that, then it's like, okay, well, that's her brand. If her brand is a little bit more revealing and she's more of on a model side than she is on the gymnastics side, and she's kind of doing both, I think the money is well warranted if there's an audience that wants to tune into her page, and because that's how other influencers are getting paid. I'm definitely not the expert to be speaking on women's bodies. I'm not falling into that. I have two daughters and I'm married too, so I know that this space extra.
It's obviously hard to speak on that, especially as a man, and I get that.
I do. It is uncomfortable though. Like when we talked about it, and then I went to the page to start kind of looking at the page, I was like, oh, okay, I kind of get this. Like if my daughters were in college right now, I would be like, yo, what you doing? Well, I mean, I understand the $3 million, but like all of these, like there's some on there that's a little bit much. And so I would have that conversation. Maybe her dad is having that conversation. Maybe not, who knows, but each their own. So she's doing her thing, I guess. So. And
I will say that she did kind of, I guess, fire back on the article and put something in her story and said, is this too much? Now, I will say the photo that she used, according to that, was one of her in her leotard at the gym in front of a balance beam. So to me, like at that point, she's obviously, you know, showing herself in her arena, right? In her sporting arena, which is quite a bit different than maybe some of the other pictures we've seen. So I don't know, you know, it's definitely a tough place to be. I think you make all great points as well. I think we're maybe trying to tackle too many issues within that article in and of itself, but I'd be interested to see what some of the readers, because I'll be honest with you, as a female as well, and I know this just from even the stuff that I post on my social media, you know, I kind of put myself out there with this thing that I do called the sideline shimmy. It's just a thing, you know, there's a whole backstory to why that all started, but I'm definitely putting myself out there, and I know that there's going to be positive comments and there's always going to be negative comments and people that are like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? This is stupid. This is silly. And you just get to a point where you know it's coming. So I'm sure she hears both sides of it plenty, you know, but I guess that's kind of what you sign up for when you start, you know, when you sign up for social media and you put stuff out there, you're basically signing yourself away to say, hey, anybody and everybody that has a screen name can respond back to it and hide behind a computer screen if they want to. So
I do think the article did its job though, like from the standpoint of making people think about this, like pause and think like, is this a bit much or is it not a bit much? I think it's a good conversation starter, but that we definitely can't you can't, everybody is not going to come out on the same side with this article. So, it's a good article out there for people to start to have a conversation about it, though, for sure.
All right, so headline number 2, the National Federation of State High School Association is offering a free course to high schoolers about NIL. So this course details the realities of NIL at the high school and college levels. And this course it's supposed to help high school athletes leverage NIL to promote themselves and their identity through a brand or business. The course will address intellectual property rights and explain the differences between NIL and pay for play. And I know that's something we have talked about on the show, the difference in the two. But having a offering like this, a free course, and getting an early jump start on it before you get to college, because I know some colleges are trying to implement this now and implement these kind of programs, Kevin, but like having this at the high school level, I mean, I think this is probably something pretty positive and really kind of sets kids up and athletes up for what the future could look like for them from an NIL perspective.
Yeah, when I was reading this article and kind of thinking about it, it's like, I think all education is good as long as it's accurate. So I'm hoping that they have some people that have experience in the branding and NIL space that's actually, providing these kids and their families the type of information that they need so that they're not getting taken advantage of in any way. So that's kind of my big concern, but I do think it's needed. I think the high school spaces in the NIL, from the NIL perspective, is definitely growing just as much, if not even faster, than the college space. Because if the earlier you can get a hold of these families and the kids, then the better chance that I think that some of these universities have at, having them come to their school.
And one thing I'll say, like anything else, and, as someone over here that works in the prevention space, I do a lot of work in the addiction prevention space and work with young student athletes and students as a whole, just to kind of talk about prevention and things that student athletes can do to make good decisions and the appropriate decisions when it comes to, maybe drug use or opioid use or whatever that entails within that space. I think it's so important that you're not only reaching the student athletes themselves, but also the parents. And I think, Kevin, you could probably attest to that too, because the parents need to be, educated on this, because obviously once those kids, turn 18, like it's kind of like they're off into the world. But let's be real. We all know at 18, we're still kids and there's still so much to learn. And I think parents are getting so much more involved in this NIL space now. And I want the best for my kid. So I'm going to help my kid pick the best plays based on what, they can benefit from the most. And I think it's important for the parents to not be completely blind to what's out there as well. And I think it really needs to be kind of a team effort, because I think the more you can educate these student athletes and their families and parents, the more I think that things can work in synergy and not kind of have this disconnect and divide.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you said, once there's kind of like this one team effort, the universities, the parents, the kids, all on the same page. And that it's not just like, I'm handing my kids off to the university and then hoping for the best type thing. So anytime you can build that relational currency, I think is going to be a smoother interaction for the kids and a smoother experience. So I definitely think this training is needed for the high school space.
I like that. Relational currency. That's a good term there. Look at you, KJ.
Thank you.
Dropping dimes. What up?
Yes, sir. No fumbles, only touchdowns.
No fumbles. That's right. Yep. All right, third and final headline. John Calipari from Kentucky, he gives a stance on NIL. So the Kentucky basketball coach highlights how NIL can help its athletes, saying that NIL shouldn't be the main reason you go to Kentucky, but that Kentucky teaches its athletes branding, taxes, and financial empowerment. He said that Kentucky is the first program to hire an NIL mentor who will field calls from businesses and handle the deals compliantly. So I think this is kind of an interesting story, because I will say, in previous episodes, we've talked a little bit about how some of the athletic directors and some of the other coaches and basically these schools are getting on board, right? Whether they agree with it or not, because it's pretty much known, I guess, that the athletics director at Kentucky has a stance that doesn't really align with the NIL space, but it's kind of like, hey, it's here to stay, and we might as well use it in a positive way and capitalize on it. But I guess having a mentor in place, I think, is obviously helpful. I'd be interested to know, is this mentor someone that's actually doing the deals for them? Because I know obviously agents are involved and all that stuff. So that's one area I'd be curious to know, is like what this mentor is all about and what this mentor does. And then what does the mentor pass off to maybe the agents or other people involved?
No, Lauren, that's definitely a good question. And I think a lot of people have that question. But with the rules, you can't really have someone working and being paid on staff and also handling or facilitating that deal per se. They can facilitate relationships. They can answer questions to the athletes, inform the athletic department on what's going on type of deal. But as far as being hands-on in the deal with the contracts, I'm not sure that they're allowed to do that. But this is a space where I'm a little more interested than a lot of the other questions, because I wonder how, some of these universities are hiring a company in there inside of the university, but they can't be the middleman per se. But I feel like in some of these places, that's what's happening, to be honest, that there's a middleman in the middle trying to broker some of these deals. But I think that's going to be something that the NCAA is going to have to crack down on. So when we talk about guardrails and enforcing rules, this one seems a little bit more gray area than some of the other stuff that we talk about in the NIL space with the collectives, where you have somebody actually on staff, actually talking to the head coach or talking to the athletic department or the athletic director, and then also dealing with the student athletes. I think that one is a little bit fuzzy for me, but I also don't know all the details on it. Yeah.
Now let me ask you this, Kevin, before we wrap up this segment. You as someone that has been helping Virginia Tech student athletes get endorsement deals through Triumph, your company. Who are you dealing with primarily when those transactions are happening? Are you dealing directly with the student athlete, agents? Is it a combination? Like, take us through maybe a little bit behind the curtains of who specifically you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis with these kind of deals.
Yeah, on a day-to-day basis, we kind of, so we represent the student athletes. So you might find them on our website as Triumph Athletes. But most of the time we're dealing with the athletes and the businesses. So it's kind of, we're in the middle on that side, on the external side. So we know who the athletes are, obviously because we represent 60 something of them across different sports. But we also have local clients that we deal with and local businesses and donors who want to hire the athletes basically to do work. So, Triumph NIL is powered by Joba Studio, which is also my brand, which is a marketing communications company. And we already have a book of business. We already had a book of business of clients locally and nationally who we understand what their marketing budget may be, or hurdles that they want to overcome, or audience that they want to speak to. So then we take that knowledge and say, hey, here's a good athlete that could be good for the things that you're trying to do over here, or to try to reach a certain audience. And that's kind of the space that we play in.
Okay. So you're almost kind of playing matchmaker a little bit, right? In many ways, sort of the matchmaker.
Matchmaker, protector, because we also want to protect the student athletes that they're not signing something that wouldn't make sense or be in their best interest, or locks them up in a contract for too long, or, where someone may control their name, image, and likeness in perpetuity, things like that. We got to read these contracts or create the contracts that's beneficial.
Because that legal language can be tough. Which is obviously why I have an agent that handles a lot of my stuff, because I look at that language and I'm just like, you've got to have a serious law degree, or at least some big time knowledge to be able to siphon through a lot of this stuff, because there is a lot of legal jargon that one or two sentences could literally get you in serious trouble with going in a completely different direction than you think you're going.
Exactly. So, and then, a lot of these kids, the different backgrounds that they have, they've never had any type of exposure to a contract, especially something that's going to be more beneficial to the businesses than it would be to the athletes. So we try to make those things fair, and we walk them through those contracts. We talk to them as much as we can. That's the role that we play.
I love that. That's good. Good insight on that for sure. And something I know that you kind of bring to the table in this conversation of kind of knowing how to understand both sides of it, because there's definitely a lot to unpack here, which is obviously why we're here on the show right now and cruising right through episode number 4. All right, so those are our headlines today, and we're going to kick it over to our producer now, Dean Zolkowski. He's got Bobak Hayeri on the line with some of the happenings on Reddit.
NIL headlines.
Thanks, Lauren. I'm joined now by our friend from Reddit College Football, Bobak Hayeri. Bobak, how's everything going?
Oh, it's all right. I unfortunately had to be dragged to a fall wedding this weekend, and my karmic reward, was getting the flu. So I've been better, but it is what it is.
End fall weddings. Absolutely.
Stop them in their tracks.
So you have a fun story here from out of the University of Texas where it looks like 5 collectives have joined together to create the Texas One Fund. We've heard of super conferences with all the conference realignment. It appears to be a super collective now. Bobak, what do you make of this?
Well, it seemed inevitable, to be honest. So with the Wild West nature we've had with NIL over the past year and a half, a lot of fans, a lot of boosters, especially with programs that have lots of well-moneyed boosters like a Texas, they were all getting together and trying to create their own versions of super funded NIL collectives, with booster funded ones. And the idea of focusing them all together into a single sort of super collective, that was something that not only seemed inevitable, but, wise for some of these fans and some of these super boosters, which a school like Texas has. So the reactions to it have been all, about where you expected. Everyone's pretty impressed. Texas fans are especially sanguine about it. They're thrilled. One of the quotes I saw from a Texas fan was, "Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station." And it does seem like it's an opportunity for Texas to be second to none at the NIL game when you start throwing all that money at it. Another Texas fan said it's going to be quite simple, make it as easy as possible for the rich people. Money goes in here, 5 stars come out here. Other fans from other, fan bases, as I said, are impressed, but they're a little worried. An LSU fan put it best, "I'm going to keep enjoying the mediocre Texas as long as I can, because at some point they're going to turn a corner and never look back, I'm afraid." Some people say the same thing happened to Georgia, had top recruiting for years, and finally put it all together last year. And now they look like they could do it again.
Yeah, it definitely feels like Texas is a sleeping giant, and maybe this is the thing that pushes them forward. The collectives that joined together were the Clark Field Collective, Horns with Heart, Occupy Left Field, which is a baseball-focused collective, a basketball-focused collective 40 pack, and one centered around golf called National Championship Golf Foundation. So it's not just football, and I think that's something that you brought up that was important here, that for all the history that the University of Texas has, this is going to propel all of their sports, not just football, and really wake up what is a historic and powerhouse program.
And you bring up a good point, because Texas is already an extremely strong athletic department across the board. They've won the last 2 Learfield Cups, which are the Directors' Cups, all sports at all levels. Funny enough, I don't even know if football's included there. It might be just NCAA sports, but they have won the last 2 of those. For a while there, it was like Stanford's award for like 14 years in a row, with schools like UCLA, USC, Texas, and I believe like Florida also competing for it. But they're already strong, so for the rest of their sports, this makes them even stronger. Although there is some question of whether or not that will truly benefit football in the long run, because you just add a couple of letters to Texas and you got Texas A&M, and they've had a ton of money. And this year they're foundering. We've got a whole bunch of boosters trying to figure out when oil prices will go up high enough to pay that buyout Jimbo has. So we'll see if it pays off in the long run, because ultimately a lot of sports, football especially, I think, really relies on good coaching. Some sports you can get away just on pure talent of some of these athletes, where they go and they perform. You see those results, but football can be a little trickier. Every now and again, you'll get some superstar, certainly. Johnny Manziel at Texas A&M, which we were just talking about, Vince Young at Texas, and many others I'm obviously not citing. But we'll see if this is something that will ultimately get Texas into a situation where they're winning, or if we're going to have a lot of these Texas boosters all getting together to try and figure out how to get a coach out of office.
You add a few letters to Texas and it becomes Texas A&M. That's great. And for, how often we bring up on this show, and I know Kevin and Lauren talked about it on the earlier segment with Coach Calipari, with Kentucky, you see a lot of coaches now, because they're able to, they're advocating for these collectives. They're promoting them, they're supporting them. Up until now, it has been primarily, each school has like their one primary collective. I wonder, do you feel like this could lead to other schools following suit and more schools following the Texas collective? Let's pool all of our resources, all of our connections together to, put our best foot forward in this thing.
Certainly, I think at this point, people are going to see how the Texas model works. Because as we said, it's kind of a Wild West. So everyone's trying to come up with a good solution. So the Texas model could be the one true model. But at this point, everyone's kind of guessing. And also, not everyone necessarily has the financial wherewithal of Texas, where they even have multiple, booster NIL funds going around. But certainly if Texas starts to get it to work, frankly, I could see programs wanting to do this very quickly, only to get them all under some level of control. Because the last thing you need is some NIL booster group going and doing something that still manages to break NCAA rules. Because there are still rules out there. I know we joke about it being the Wild West, but there are still some rules you could violate. It's certainly a moving target for a lot of these programs, but I think consolidation should be the future, at least for marketing purposes too. You have a coach who wants to promote people, and I love the fact that you mentioned that, because I mean, coaches, it makes their job easier. Hey, support Texas athletics, support your favorite college football team, and donate to X collective, and they'll take care of the rest. And I, as a head coach, don't have to worry about it anymore. So please do that. All I have to do is keep saying Texas Fund or whatever, and people will keep donating to it.
Absolutely. Great stuff as always, Bobak. We're going to throw it back over to Kevin and Lauren now. They are joined by Ben Chase, who I know you're familiar with his story. He's been to nearly 50 college football games already this fall. Before we run over there, Bobak, do you think, I guess, how long would it take for you to pull off 50 games? How long would that be? 1 season, 2 seasons? What do you think?
Well, it depends how much money I've got going on that. It's certainly feasible. And I'm impressed by these kinds of competitions because I think it gives opportunities for others to one-up each other. I kind of think of an old Simpsons gag about not understanding the future of computers. So it cuts to like some scene in the 1960s. Eventually, there'll be 5 computers owned by the richest kings of Europe. So I think at this point, we're going to reach a point where somebody extremely rich is going to be able to try and beat this record for Insta or for TikTok or something. And they'll go to like 100 games in one season, being charioted around by a limousine or something. But we'll see. These are fun records. As long as people have an opportunity to break them, it'll be exciting to watch people post about it on their social media and all of that.
You're listening to NIL Now.
All right, we got our show guest on for today, Ben Chase, NIL consultant advocate and college football super fan. Y'all, this is crazy to me. Ben is currently on a trip around the country trying to break the record for most college football games attended in a season. 44 games already this fall. And I'm saying 44 games, 44 college football games. So I feel like there's just a lot to unpack here. So many questions. And then, of course, Ben Chase here has been in the NIL space. He's kind of gotten to watch it change and grow. And we're anxious to kind of get into that a little bit and figure out what he's seen from the road. So I guess first and foremost, Ben, give us a little bit of backstory on sort of how you got involved in the NIL space to begin with.
Sure. And again, thank you guys for having me on. My background specifically in the NIL space is I'm an attorney and I went to GW Law for law school. And on October 5th of last year, this company called Blueprint Sports tweeted about doing this deal with UNLV basketball, $500 a player per month for the whole season. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I actually just DM'd one of the founders on Twitter and said, hey, I'd be interested in working for your team if possible. And he was like, can you shoot me an email with your thoughts? And I sent him an email of 3 paragraphs. And then he goes, let's hop on a call, but can you shoot me more? And then 17 minutes into the interview, they were like, can you meet me in person? Like, can you send me more information? And I was like, I'm giving you this all for free on my thoughts. And then they hired me a month later to do strategy for them as a consultant. And I turned the company from, they wanted to be a marketplace into a NIL collective launching company and management company. So we did collectives for Gonzaga basketball, Arizona football. They just launched Penn State football. But, I was there for 9 months and it's a great team, but we just decided to go our separate ways. And now I still do some consulting for, I do a little bit for John Hopkins lacrosse and some other groups out there. And now I'm kind of just traveling the country doing this trip. I interviewed for some NIL companies that were startups that were like, we're going to wait for the next round of funding, but we'd love to have you. yeah, and so that's kind of where I'm at now. And actually last week I was at 44, and this week now I'm at 47 games. So I've been to 47 games all over the country, seen NIL up close in person at different events, and it's really cool.
So when did you become passionate about, college football? And do you also do this for pro sports, or is it just college?
Yeah, so I've fell in love with college football probably when I was in middle school. My mentor in middle school was a UCF grad, and he was never my teacher, but he was a middle school teacher at the school I went to. And he was just kind of like put me under his wing, and I would help set up the tailgates at UCF for all of his like other staff members and teachers. And I fell in love with the traditions and culture around college football, and how I believe that college football brings people together more than politics and religion or anything like that. And ever since then, I went to Valencia, then I went to UF for undergrad. So I'm a big Florida Gator. I'm actually in Gainesville right now to go to a basketball game before driving overnight to Toledo for a football game. So yeah, that's kind of where I decide. When it comes to pro sports, I mean, I love the Bucks and the Magic. I'm from Orlando, so Orlando Magic's probably like basketball is my favorite sport, but college football is my favorite tradition. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
I love that perspective. That's cool. So Kevin and I, before we were kind of looking at your resume, and obviously at 47 games, like, how in the world do you squeeze all these things in? I mean, 47, like we all know there's so many days in a football season. Like, how in the heck are you like puzzle piecing this thing together and getting from point A to point B and making this happen?
Yeah. Are you sponsored? Are you sponsored too? That's another question.
I've had over, I would say at this point, like 200 people Venmo me for the trip, just random dollar amounts from like $1 to a few $100s.
Nice.
Yeah, and I've gone to 47 games, and I've only paid for tickets to 8 games. So basically, it's just gas money and maintenance for my car. And I've had a $500 deal with TickPick, the ticketing company. And actually, Pep Boys just mailed me $250 worth of service stuff.
That's cool.
Last week, I was lucky to be featured on Maction game, the Bowling Green game. And after that game, I kind of went viral in the college football Twitter space, and Applebee's reached out. So I'm working with Applebee's potentially on something. So yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, it's cool how this stuff works.
Yeah, but I mean, we'll see what happens. Like, I mean, it's all on credit cards right now. Like I still have an apartment in Tucson, so I'm paying rent, even though I don't live there. But yeah, I'm not sponsored.
Wow.
Besides, in sponsorship money, I mean, $500. I did one of my friends from Orlando has a travel company, and the first few weeks of the season, I helped promote his travel company for a little bit of money. But he just wanted to be a part of the story more so than like sponsor me. So, but that's basically it.
That's pretty cool. Obviously, trying to capitalize on that, and you use this NIL space, and obviously being a college football superfan, like why athletes can get paid, why can't superfans get paid? I mean, it's a thing. And
it's one of those things where like, so I never was a student athlete, but I'm driving 70 hours a week, which is like kind of like working out all the time.
Relax, Ben.
Okay. It's the closest I can get to like empathizing with student athletes to say like, I'm too busy for my schedule. It's like,
oh, okay. I'll take that. I'll take that response a little bit better.
No, like, so I'm saying like if I can tell a story and create a character and network and find opportunities, and also drive 60 hours. Like I'm doing my map right now for this week, and it's 57 hours, 3,700 miles.
No, you're right. I had to tease you. I had to jump in on that. But I mean, driving is ridiculous. Driving like that, as much as you're driving, is definitely, you soar when you're getting out of the car and things like that for sure.
Yeah,
I was just messing. Yeah.
Yeah, no. But the story is like, I mean, it's one of those things where if I can find the time to do a deal or find a deal, like I hope that I can help student athletes like figure out that they can do it too. So that's kind of like that part. But like doing it in public, it's hard. And, I went, when I decided to do this trip, I just said, this is what I'm doing. And now it's like, we're doing this, right? So like I went from going from 60 games to 70 because people have helped me out. Like, and then like every week I kind of like, I'm literally adding a game this week right now. Like right before you called me, I was, and this week is actually, I'm going to be late for the second game. So, but yeah, I'm finalizing my schedule for this week. But yeah, it's been chaotic, but it's organized chaos.
What's the current record?
For road trips, it's two brothers in 2016. They did 57, including the national championship game. So like I'm at 47, but there is a guy who I've met on this trip who he's done 81 in the season, but he'll fly and he'll drive. We do completely. We're like in the same library, but like we're in different sections. And I've met him a few times. So we have a lot of crossover. But I also interview people at the games. Like I try to meet a student or alumni or something, and like ask them about why their school is like special to them. And just this weekend, I took over 70 kids to a game with me in Tampa. So like at this, again, it's not at this point. I'm trying to give back because I've gotten, like I said, 39 tickets for free.
So you coming to Blacksburg in honor of the kids that the issue was over at UVA? We play UVA not this week, but the following week at home. So that'd be cool if you could make it down this way.
Yeah. So I've been to a Hokies game already this season, actually.
Oh, which one did you go to?
The Thursday night game against West Virginia that was sold out.
Well, yeah, we took a L.
Otherwise, I would be there. Like I try to do as many different. So up to this point, I've never seen the same home team twice. So like this week is the first time I'll see both teams. I've already seen, but neither of them I've seen at home. The away team I've seen at home. But yeah, like I try to maximize. So I've seen 86 teams so far this season.
Sheesh. So as it pertains to NIL, what are you seeing out there, on your travels? Is it something you encounter from the fan experience? Like, is it being promoted and pumped out there? Like, have you noticed any of that?
That's a good question. Some stadiums and some schools, like in the stadium, have the co-branded merchandise or the athletes' individual merchandise. For example, I was at Syracuse, and one of their running back has a line of clothing. I don't remember his name offhand, but he had like 3 or 4 shirts in their official merchandise store, which is really cool, and I think it was probably a co-branded thing. So it's probably with like Brandar or one of the groups that does like co-licensing so that they can have like the logos on it. So I've seen that, I've seen, back to back TV timeouts in the stadium, NIL Collective 1, NIL Opportunity 2, 3, like 3 commercials in a row, all in the same quarter. Like we're going to talk about NIL in the next 3, like, what I'm saying? So I've seen that kind of stuff. At UT Austin, Texas, outside the stadium, there was people selling hot dogs with Bijan Musterson, and it was like Bijan Musterson like shirts, and like that was really cool actually. Like so you can buy like straight like hot dogs with, and I assume that they're affiliated, hopefully, where that some of that money goes to Bijan Robinson, who's the running back at Texas. So those are some of the examples.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, obviously, kind of being on both sides of that space makes it really interesting. I guess when the season's all said and done, you're obviously mapping things out. College football, the season's over. What do you just kind of hope your biggest takeaway from this experience is for you and maybe for those out there that have been following your journey?
Yeah, I think, again, I'm going to go back to like how college athletics and specifically college football, brings people together more than any sport, more than anything in our country. I've been to places in Texas where they go, I would never want to go to California. I've never been, or I've been to California. They're like, why would you want to go to West Virginia? And I try to show and tell stories of like why Pullman, Washington is a really cool place, and like why you should care about what's going on there, and why like Huntington, where Marshall is, and like is a really awesome like town, and like telling the love story that is college football, if you will, and I'm kind of like living and breathing that. For example, this last Saturday when I took those 70 kids to the game, I made one phone call before announcing a video. I just called one person, my friend. He has a podcast network in Florida called the Roll Up Network. No affiliation with USF. They do Florida, Florida State, Miami. I just called him. I said, hey, would you want to try to do this with me? I'm going to get 70 kids. I'm going to 70 games, 1 kid per game. He's like, yeah, let's try it. So I was like, all right. So I made a 1-minute video. I tweeted it and put it on Instagram. And within 2 hours, the AD at USF goes, email me, we'll figure it out. And we got 250 free tickets. We got 100 free shirts. We got free food from Guthrie's. We got so much stuff. I mean, I paid a little bit out of pocket for a bus, but I also had people Venmo me just to support the trip. So like, it's kind of that as a story as a whole. And it's also like, if you want something, just shut your mouth and just go do it. Like chase whatever you're going for. That's what I'm doing, like in public.
Are you filming any of this?
So I'm vlogging like every game, but I don't have time to do it. Also, like the first 6 games are like really good, proper vlogs, like that I'm kind of proud of on YouTube. But because at this point, it's like kind of chaotic, and I kind of, I try to respect people's privacy. I've kind of slowed down because I've gotten so much like traction. And then that's not like me bragging. It's just like, you know, they'll be like, hey, we're going to take you into like the press box. And like, I'm not going to film in the press box. And like, you know, I actually spent the night at a coach's house last week, which is kind of crazy. So like, yeah. So like the little things like that. Yeah. But like, it's all part of this huge story that is like the love of college football, and people want to share that love.
Definitely look forward to seeing, you know, where you're headed. And I know that you've got a couple more on the slate. Is there one particular game before we let you go that you're trying to get to or most excited about that's still left on the schedule before the end of the season?
Yeah, I would say the Egg Bowl between Mississippi State and Ole Miss. Like, it's in the Grove, which I hear is the greatest place to tailgate. And it's on Thanksgiving Day, and someone's already said you can have Thanksgiving with us, which is kind of cool because obviously I'm on the road. So that's kind of the one. Yeah, the Egg Bowl. I'm fired up for the Egg Bowl.
Love what you're doing, man. This is a huge story. Where can people tune in to see the blog at?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of do all kinds of stuff, but if they want to check out some of the first 6 episodes or first 6 games, it's on YouTube. You can just search Ben Chase 60. It'll pop up. Most of the best places to follow me are Instagram and Twitter, Ben G Chase, and that's about it.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to following your journey as you close out this 2022 college football season, and we wish you all the best. And I hope you safe travels on everywhere you go, and keep bringing that positivity to people, because we know we enjoy it, and I know people need it right now. So it's awesome.
I'm grateful for you guys having me on. Thank you, and go Gators. Appreciate it, guys.
All right. Thank you again to Ben Chase. Shout out to you for coming on the show. We appreciate your insight on the NIL world, especially as a college football super fan. Fun to follow your journey. And of course, you can follow his journey on Twitter at Ben G Chase. That's Ben G Chase. Also, follow us on NIL Now Show. That's on Instagram and Twitter, or you can get on the Reddit NIL channel. Tell a friend, let us know what you think about the show, and find next week's episode out wherever you listen to your podcast. Thank you to Bobak and the Reddit College Football team for their help as well. You can follow them at Reddit College Football on Twitter and online at the Reddit College Football channel. I'm Lauren Sisler, co-host Kevin Jones. Love you, bud. Also, a big thanks to our audio engineer, Colin, as well as our producer, Dean. Y'all are awesome. And then we've got our executive producers to shout out: Richard Diamond, Selena Roberts, and Scott Broder. We'll talk to you again next week on NIL Now.
Thanks for listening to NIL Now, presented by Headline Studio and Reddit.